My name is Franc Roddam. I'm a filmmaker, director, sometimes producer, often a writer. I had some success with some interesting films like Quadrophenia, which is a big cult movie these days. But I started in Teesside, and I started in a place called Norton-on-Tees, and went to local schools, worked in local industry, and then ended up dropping my apprenticeship as an engineer and going back to Billingham Tech to do O-levels and A-levels in art subjects. And after a bit of traveling, ended up at the London Film School, and that's how my career started. And it started because I was given a grant by Teesside, paid for my education, my tuition, and for my accommodation. Without that, I would still be roaming around the world, I think, as some like old hippie. Teesside University were very gracious and gave me a Doctor of Arts, which was, you know, a phenomenal thing to happen. And when I went up there to receive it, I was so impressed by the university and its style and its manner and the way they ran it. It just felt very modern and very young and very switched on. And having left Stockton in the industrial age to come back, in the middle, say the industrial age, the middle age is when Stockton and Middlesbrough were falling apart a little bit. And now to see it come back up and be regenerated is an incredible thing. And I think that Teesside University gives a great sort of, great dignity to the town and to the area and a little glamour to it as well. And also Teesside University gives it the area a great opportunity for investment to bring in, and you know, as I'm watching and reading what Teesside University are doing, I see that they're going to encourage new industries to come and modern industries, and it's the first time in decades I've seen and felt this positivity, and so I'm very impressed and very glad to be part of it. And there's a secondary reason, is that when I was a young man in Teesside and I trained as a in the shipyards, and then after traveling, I wanted to go to college and couldn't afford to go. It was Teesside that paid my grant for my tuition and my education, and for my accommodation. So I'm very grateful. When the opportunity came to do something in return, it was put to me the possibility of doing scholarships for maybe 10 graduates, undergraduates. And I thought, well, this is a great thing to do, and I had the lolly, the cash, so I was very happy to do it. I think film and media is a great industry. It's a very modern industry, and it's a tough industry because there's so much competition. But if that's what you love, I mean, go for it. It's very important to attack it full on. It's not an industry where you can be shy. People in the working class people, or people in Teesside in general, we tend to be a bit deferential, we're a bit polite, we don't speak too loudly when we're in other places. And I think in the film industry, you have to really push yourself out there. There's major competition, not just from in England and the UK, but in fact, when I went to Hollywood, I was competing with the best from France, the best from Germany, the best from Australia, the best from the States, etc., etc., etc. So suddenly you find yourself at the Olympics of filmmaking and media. But what I love about the choice I made is I was brought up to think I should make a living with my hands as a tradesman, as a carpenter or an electrician or engineer, whatever. But now I make a living with my imagination. So that's a fantastic thing. And I think anybody who goes in the film industry, at the highest level, you can work with your imagination. And at another level, you can work with a craft. And if you can learn the techniques of filmmaking at university, and then if you've got energy and ambition, you can then get out into the world and have a great time. So I would encourage people to do it, for sure. When I was at college, you didn't need to have a scholarship because the local governments were providing just enough for you to live, but also have a summer job. Now I think it's so much harder to be backed as a student. The scholarships had to come into it. I think what shocked me was that people were going to college but having to do 3 jobs just to pay their way. And I thought, well, if we do a scholarship and we can contribute a small amount, not contributing the whole amount, but a small amount to a number of students, they won't have to take that extra job. They'll be able to use their energy for their studies and for their for their work and imagination. So somebody like me who benefited from getting grants from Teesside, I'm very happy to put money back in so that students who are going to study film and television won't have to take jobs in the evening, as bouncers and barmen. They can concentrate on their work. So it's a small contribution to a great scheme. If I give myself some advice, my advice would have been, I pushed very hard to get into film, to get into television, to get into Hollywood. If I could do something that I hadn't done, I would have pushed harder. It's so interesting. We don't realize it's down to us. It's not, nobody's going to, especially now, nobody's going to come to you and say, oh, you're a student, you look interesting, I'm going to give you a job, I'm going to give you a film, I'm going to give you this money. It doesn't work like that. You have to go and get it. Well, the thing that I miss about Teesside, I love the landscape outside, just surrounding Teesside. It's the most beautiful landscape up in the Cleveland Hills and, going across to Whitby. And I mean, it's a beautiful landscape. What I also miss about Teesside is terrific humor in Teesside. They're very funny people. And I learned a lot of good stories and storytelling abilities from working in the shipyards and working on the building sites and the chat, the crack as they used to call it, between the different peoples. And, I think a lot of the skills that I learned as a communicator came from Teesside, from working in the shipyards, even from delivering papers as a kid. It's like, you get this different view. I lived in a council house in Middlesbrough, and I would deliver booze to the big posh houses in the high street. You can't imagine, we didn't know anything about that sort of thing. I'd be in our little street, and then I'd end up going to this house, and there'd be a maid with a black uniform, a little white hat, an apron, and they'd be taking bottles of gin off me. I was looking around, I was trying to find out, so I was always curiosity is a big part of it all, I think, self-belief, imagination, all those things. What the University at Teesside is doing, it is tapping into a deep seam of talent that we have in Teesside. We have extraordinary people there, and sometimes they're not given the opportunity to fulfill their dreams or use their talents. Teesside University will help them, and the scholarship that we've created between us is just a small addition to that. We want to make sure that the Teesside, with all its talent, is able to thrive, and that is what the university is doing, and that's why I'm very proud to be part of it.